Ibrahim a slave or a princess? Well, personally, I really don't have any certain knowledge on this matter. The biblical sources do refer to her as being the slave of his wife, Sarah, right? Who later gifted her to Ibrahim to be his second wife. Further question, all of this from Sister Hamida. Please recommend some comprehensive fiqh books for women and general issues. If you cannot, then please consider writing one. Well, I did write a book called The Islamic Ruling on Menstruation and Postnatal Bleeding, which tries to deal with some of the issues that face females. This is a day-to-day kind of issue. Trying to provide in it all of the evidence, gathering all of the hadiths, so that a woman can read this, study it, and then she can become knowledgeable in this area, be able to make decisions for herself and for others. There are books actually in Arabic which do address to a large degree the issues concerning women, and there have been some books of fatwa for women which have been published coming out of Saudi Arabia. So there are some books available on the market. Question: the use of poetry in tafsir, did the Prophet ﷺ recommend its use, or is it its allowance from the Sahaba or the scholars? Is that from them, or did the Prophet ﷺ actually recommend it? Well, actually, in tafsir, when you find scholars like Ibn Kathir and others using poetry, they're basically using it to establish word meanings. They're not using it, promoting poetry per se. Although Prophet ﷺ did have a poet. Hassan ibn Thabit was the personal poet of the Prophet ﷺ. When delegations used to come from the pagans to meet him for discussions or whatever, and they used to bring with them, because they love poetry, and they would bring with them a poet, and he would quote some lines of poetry, which is famous to that clan or that tribe or whatever, as a means of showing their whatever, nobility or whatever. And Prophet ﷺ would call Hassan, and Hassan would reply, taking the same rhyme or rhythm of their poetry and then bring something back, something praising, of course, Allah, praising Islam, praising the Prophet ﷺ. So, the use of poetry in this kind of context is perfectly legitimate. Though Islam does discourage poetry, which is the poetry which ends up now, promoting corruption, especially the poetry of music today, the music scene, where all of the pop, Madonna, Jackson, and all the different Spice Girls, etc., all of these groups, they are using poetry. Their songs, etc., the rap groups, it's all poetry. And it is evil, promoting corruption, drugs, fornication, adultery, and, everything under the sun. So this is what is not permissible. But the use in order to establish word meanings, etc., or to illustrate certain points is perfectly legitimate. Further question. Can I attend gatherings of bid'ah in order to lecture or to give da'wah? I've been avoiding doing so. Well, actually it is permissible. It is permissible to attend gatherings, which we call gatherings of bid'ah. And what we mean are not necessarily the places where great corruption is taking place, where your presence, though you might be giving da'wah to one or two individuals, is not affecting the overall setting, and you're just seen as a part of it all. But one where, for example, you're invited to give a talk on the Prophet's birthday, which has become sort of an innovated celebration which Muslims yearly or annually celebrate. So you attend one of these and clarify to them the true understanding of such celebrations. Using it as a means of da'wah is perfectly legitimate. And in fact, if you have the knowledge, you're able to handle that situation, then it's encouraged for you to do so. Okay, some further emails here. Question. If a woman is on menstruation, can she read the Quran or can she touch the Quran? I'll be very grateful to you if you could reply back to me. Basically, a menstruating woman can read the Quran and touch it. Actually, in my book, the Islamic ruling on menses, that whole issue is discussed in depth. The position held by the various scholars of the past, etc., and the evidence which they use for it. But the general consensus, today is that really that prohibition was not solidly based. It was used, the examples which were used, have to do with the men's situation. Prophet ﷺ didn't used to recite the Quran when he was in a state of janaba, requiring a ghusl, a bath, because he had sexual relations. It's called a greater level of impurity. This was his practice. This was not a prohibition. So even from the Prophet ﷺ's practice of not doing so, one cannot deduce that it is prohibited to do so. This is well-known principles of Islamic law, that prohibitions come with clear statements, not an act of the Prophet ﷺ which may be taken as something personal to himself. So, first and foremost, that basic evidence which is used is not sufficient evidence. Secondly, there is a vast difference between janaba and menses. When a woman is in her menses, she cannot come out of it whenever she chooses to do so. When a person is in a state of janaba or greater ritual impurity due to sexual relations, whenever they take a ghusl, a complete bath, then they're out. They can stop, they can come out of that state of ritual impurity at any point. Whereas a woman in a state of menses, this is not a choice on her part. This is a situation where she cannot. So to say for those 7 days or 8 days or 5 days, she cannot read the Quran, she cannot even touch it or pick it up to read it or whatever, this is not really founded in the basic evidences. When Aisha was asked by the Prophet ﷺ to go into the masjid and bring his prayer rug, she was shy to do so. And he asked her why, and she said, because I'm menstruating. He said, your menses is not in your hands. This is in Sahih Bukhari. Your menses is not in your hands. Clarifying that, the Quran or this rug is not going to become impure because of the fact that you're in a state of menstruation. It is the Jews who had this kind of position that, when a woman is in her menses, anything she touches becomes defiled. This is why for Jewish tradition, the woman, when she's in her menses, she has a special set of dishes that she handles, she touches and so on. So otherwise, if she touches the dishes of others, they become defiled. They cannot eat from it. So, dear viewers, the point is that with regards to women on menses, they can recite the Quran, they can touch it if necessary, and they should, in fact, continue to recite the Quran rather than cut themselves off from Allah's revelation for those days in which they are on their menses. And with that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, In the Light of Islam. You may email me at bilalphillips.com, that's my webpage, officially, or you may fax me 9716 if you're faxing from outside the country, 06 inside the country, 5323724. Or you may write to me at the station, Sharjah TV, In the Light of Islam, Dr. Bilal Phillips, P.O. Box 111, Sharjah, UAE, United Arab Emirates. Or you may call the Islamic Information Center in Dubai, 396-2190. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us again and hope to see you in our coming programs. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.